This is one of those momentous shows where you look in the mirror and you say to yourself, where were you when? Where were you when the Football Lounge was officially hosted by two married dudes?
That's right.
We were just young pups a couple years ago who were out there in the world when this show started. Now we are mature men of the world with the rings to prove it. It's a ring show.
It's a ring show. That's
right. It's a ring
That's
show,
right,
baby. Welcome to the ring show. It's like a whole new. It's just like episode 1 of the Football Lounge. It's a whole new lounge.
It's a relaunch of the lounge, a re-lounge, if you will.
Yes, we had to get rid of all of the strippers in the lounge. Now we started with
all gone.
So many strippers were in the lounge, and now it's nothing but men. We read the New York Times. We smoke pipes, and we do our shopping at Sam's Club, where we get 89-cent sodas.
That's right. There you go. I love it. And get that Kohl's cash ready. It's very exciting. That's what we've been on the hiatus for 2 weeks now, as Grace and I got married and went on our honeymoon in Italy. So ate a lot of great pasta, a lot of great pizza. And hey, for ESPN or any of those other platforms out there, we are both now very well versed in signing contracts. I think that's a big plus in this now with the two married men. We both have put pen to paper. We understand how that goes. And so that will make it a more seamless process whenever this show needs to get picked up. So we're taking all calls, but had a fantastic time. Was happy to have you out here for the wedding. Great weather. Good times, good food, and then Italy was just fantastic. We did.
I will say about the wedding, and it was an amazing night. But there were really, in hockey, they do like the three. What do they do? Like after the game, like the 3 stars of the game.
3 stars, yeah.
And is it the one with the 3 stars is the best, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
So first star of the game was Lolita Vasco. She was living. I mean, this woman is meant to be a mom at a wedding. Your mom is meant to be a wedding mom.
That's right.
She got all her ducklings in a row. She's got all her family. She's got her kids. She's just managing everything. She was a star. She looked amazing. Second star of the game, obviously the beautiful bride. Grace looked amazing. It was obviously a very emotional day for many reasons for her, and she just was an absolute celebrity.
Knocked it out of the park.
And she looked amazing. You're such a lucky guy. She was gracious as ever and amazing. But honestly, this thing that deserved the 3 stars the most, Greenville, South Carolina.
Yeah, you guys,
buddy. My wife and I left there just going to ourselves like, wait a minute. How are we, this one of those where you're like, I have FOMO. Like I am missing the Saturday morning farmers market already. It is maybe one of the top places I've ever visited in the country where I'm just like, I want to live there so badly. You guys live in such an amazing little town, an amazing little place. And I'm beyond happy for you just for where you live.
Yeah, no, it's extremely exciting to see the evolution of Greenville. And I've only been out here 3.5 years, and it's grown since I've been here, but it was on its way up well before I got here. It is one of those cities that it's not a large city. It's, Charlotte's nearby, and obviously that takes the cake in this portion of the Southeast. But Greenville has a lot to offer, a lot of culture here, and there's a lot of that really
Main
cool
Street downtown area was like nothing I've seen in a town that size in my life. It was incredible. My wife and I were blown away.
It's what Woodstock has wanted to be. Woodstock, Illinois, that is.
Oh my God. It's so much more than that. It's
for sure.
It's fantastic. And everything was beautiful. It was great, and happy for you guys, but happy to be back. We're jumping into the fray, and we got so much to talk about.
Yes, absolutely. I'm going to probably go into Italian a couple times throughout the show. Just, bear with me on that front. I've had to speak a lot of it. And by a lot of it, I mean just saying, thank you. And over ciao. Here. And where's the bathroom? And ciao. And yeah. So, and making pizzas and all of that stuff. But That was a blast, and now we're back. I mean, so much happened when I was over there in Italy, which,
Oh yeah.
by the way, I couldn't sleep one of the nights. I think I woke up at like 3 a.m. Grace was sound asleep, and I was like, man, I can't fall asleep. What do I do? And then I remembered, oh, it's 3 a.m. on a Friday, which means Thursday night football is happening right now. So at 3 in the morning, I turned on the phone and got to watch some Thursday night football. So
Which game?
What a trip! It was the was it the Buccaneers Bills?
Oh,
right?
Bucks Bills. All right.
It was not a good. It was not an exciting game, but hey, it got the job done. It helped put me back to sleep.
Yeah,
and I was able to finish out the night. But that was a trip, and so much has happened. We've got the Raiders making big moves. We had the Rangers winning a World Series. We had well, just now the Cubs have ditched David Ross and hired Greg Counsell. So bravo for that. Thank you, Cubbies. But yeah, just so much stuff. The trade deadline. So we're going to touch on a lot of these things, but obviously spending the majority of this focusing on Week 9 and the happenings that occurred just 24 hours ago. Some incredible comeback performances amidst, I would say, a lot of kind of dull games for the most part. But we did have some incredible performances, including CJ Stroud just, making his presence known on the scene if he hadn't already. So we dive into all of that and more coming up next.
For frequency's sake has you covered on all things sports. From the squared circle to the hardwood and the gridiron to the speedway, we've got something for everyone. Walk down the aisle with the boys from Cards Subject to Change every Sunday as they take a deep dive into everything pro wrestling. Need your gambling fix? We've got you there. Enter Pit Row with Rod Villagomez and Fast Money as we win the checkered flag with NASCAR, Xfinity, and truck race winners and props. Football more your style? Explore the waters of NFL DFS with DFS Deep Dive with Brian Craighead and Jordan Kernan each week. More into the science portion of the game? We've got a double dose of action there. The Professor John Bush and Dennis Michelson take you into their science lab and dissect your week in the data lab. Want an analytical take? Nick Gurl and the team at Gridiron AI come to you each week with The Lab. Need to know who to start last minute? The network's flagship show, For Fantasy's Sake, is here in a pinch. The fellas come to you live every football Sunday from 10 to 11:30 Central with the week's best DFS, gambling, and lineup advice. And wrap up your Sundays with Joe Winkle and Nick Brinks as they come to you live with educated ignorance looking at all the day's action. Can't get enough of Joe? He comes to you 3 times a week. Not enough football on Sunday? Not a problem. Kick your feet up at lunch on Monday and slip on into the Football Lounge with Mark and Dan while they look at the week that was in news, notes, and more. For frequency's sake, you know what we mean.
All right, we are back for some Week 9 shenanigans, getting ready for the Super Bowl plane update that's going to be coming up later on in the show. It's been a couple weeks now since Mark officially launched the Super Bowl plane for this season, so we're going to get the second iteration with some.
It's not
updates,
crowded.
Mark. It's not. No. We've thinned out a little bit, which
there
means
is the
that no one had to check their
have-nots.
luggage.
Yeah, there are haves and have-nots in the NFL. That's for sure.
There are, so that's a good call. I almost titled the show for this week "The Haves and the Have-Nots" because we are starting to see some teams move in completely opposite directions and start to establish themselves ahead of the pack. Of course, the San Francisco 49ers were one of those teams on a bye. We'll get to that later, but that was a team that was starting to trend downward coming into this week, and then so Seattle had an opportunity. You had other teams, the Chiefs with a chance to, kind of bounce back quickly off of a loss. And, the Bills with an opportunity to put their, stamp on the AFC East over the Bengals. So a lot of big momentum shifts on the table this past week, Mark. And we'll start with the Thursday night game as we always do and kind of rifle through these. As we have the last couple of shows, we are now in the meat and potatoes of the season, so we're not going to spend too much time on some of these matchups that don't have as much on the line, the implications, and so forth. So this game probably being one of those with the Titans at the Steelers and Thursday Night Football. I was able to catch that as I recovered from jet lag, getting back from Italy. And so this game I was able to see in its entirety, and I think a lot of people were really intrigued by Will Levis seeing his 4-touchdown performance from the week before. how he would fare facing the Steelers defense. And while the Steelers came out with the 2016 win, Mark, I did think Will Levis was overall impressive in this game. He made a lot of throws off platform, and you'll have to forgive me. I forget who mentioned this on one of the shows that I was watching or whatever. But when you try and compare these two quarterbacks together, Will Levis is a guy that can rely on his arm skills and talent to overcome mechanics. Whereas Kenny Pickett, I think it's pretty safe to say at this point now, we were about 20 game sample size, that he is a quarterback that if he's off platform, if he's not able to have his footing right and his mechanics sound, he doesn't have the arm talent necessarily to overcome that and make the throws that we've seen Will Levis do. And so while the Titans lost, my biggest takeaway outside of the Steelers still somehow managing to pull the rabbit out of the hat in the fourth quarter was that Will Levis is the dude. And I feel confident just 2 games in that he's going to get plenty of runway here over the next year to really prove himself, because he's shown some special already.
The most important thing the Titans can do for the remainder of the season, in my opinion, is to start Will Levis. Let him go through these growing pains for the rest of this year and figure out who you can pair with him, build around him. He's already creating a great relationship with Hopkins. Remember, they signed Hopkins to a 3-year deal. So, that is really, really important. And Levis is so much, as a young player, reminding me of Jay Cutler. And what we know with that is when you have a guy like that, where you have a ton of talent, one of the most important things you do with a guy like that is set a really strong culture. Vrabel can do that. And then you surround him with people who will take advantage of his explosive playness. When Jay was at his best is when he had Brandon Marshall, just big plays, throw it up, that type of receiver. Hopkins is like that. Creating that relationship with the young receiver Burks will be important in that realm as well. And letting him go through the growing pains. On a short week on the road, right? It was at Pittsburgh. Yep. He had a chance to win the game late. And Pittsburgh's really great defense, a top 5 defense, made him pay with a bad interception late. Let him learn, let him go. There is no point in going back to Ryan Tannehill at this point in time. He has shown he deserves the snaps. He deserves the growing pains. On the flip side, for your Steelers, it is crazy. They are literally doing something we have never seen in our lifetimes of football. They are winning games in a way that hasn't been done in the NFL since the 40s, where they are being outperformed. They're still in a negative, I think, point differential and have a winning record. It's impressive. And what I will say,
not just that, they should be, they were saying, based on like the yards and the overall points, 0-8 this year. And they're somehow 5-3.
And again, Mike Tomlin is a wizard. I mean, we know that about him. Mike Tomlin, though, it's going to be really imperative for him to take this with a grain of salt and make sure we now know, I agree with you, we kind of get what Kenny Pickett can be. Kenny Pickett can be a guy who can be really successful in this league if you build an offense that supports him the way that the Dolphins have done with Tua, the way the Vikings did with Kirk Cousins, the way that the Niners are doing with Brock Purdy. He's in that category, which is like Jared Goff with the Lions. It's a successful category. It's the majority of good starting quarterbacks in the league are in that category. Dak Prescott with the Cowboys. But the Pittsburgh Steelers, the one thing that worries you, and I'm sure you feel this way too as a fan, but as just an outsider, is do they have the offensive mindset and the ability to build an offense like that? Because the Steelers are just so stuck in their ways, and if it's working and we're winning games, we're just going to build with defense. Kenny needs a system. He's got players. He's got talent. Freiermuth, Deontay Johnson, Pickens. That's a great starting block. An okay offensive line. They need help on the offensive line. But he needs a system to thrive in, and not just plays and players. So that's what I'd be working towards building if I was the Pittsburgh Steelers, while also, hey, win games how you can win them right now. You're not paying Kenny anything. Yep. Spend money on that defense. Go out and get a couple elite offensive linemen, and go out and get a offensive coordinator that wants to build a system, because that's what Kenny Pickett needs.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's a huge part in his growth and development over the next couple years in his career, because as we've heard many pundits say, the Steelers are not going to be moving off of Kenny Pickett at least through his rookie contract, and that probably that 5th-year option too. So yeah, you got to start to do. I mean, I will say them changing things up with Matt Canada, putting him on the sidelines for the first time in his career. He called plays from the booth his entire career in college and in the pros. And maybe it is a coincidence. He called the best game that I think we've seen him call, at least at the professional level. And maybe there is something to that, having the ability to communicate with your young quarterback on the sidelines outside of that 20-second window that you're allowed to talk to them in their helmet. I think that's a big advantage, obviously, right there on the field in the moment. And then, just to kind of put a bow on it, because you tweeted at me during the game, or maybe right as it ended, is this sustainable? Right.
Yeah.
And, I jokingly put the John Candy gif with the, oh, sure. But obviously it's not. And that's where it's concerning, is that, they are 5-3. That's a great spot to be. If you told me this is how they've been playing offensively all season long, I would take 5-3 all day. So with the Green Bay on tap next week, they still have to play the Colts. They get the Seahawks, who are looking
a lot of winnable games,
worse and worse. So there is a lot of opportunity here still to get to 10-7 this season. And so, and right now, all the teams in the AFC North, Mark,
are
in the playoffs, which is
crazy.
Crazy. It's crazy. They are the most competitive division right now in football. So the Steelers just need to keep staying above water, and we'll see what happens next week as they take on Green Bay, if they can kind of start to stack here with the other teams, especially Cincinnati, breathing down their necks. So we'll get to Sunday now. First game in Frankfurt, Germany. First regular season game over there in Germany in NFL history. The Dolphins at the Chiefs, which was very highly touted game coming into this, the most anticipated one of the weekend slate. The Chiefs edge Miami 21-14 in this game. A lot more low scoring than I think most of us would have thought. But it did feel that the Chiefs really did kind of have a stranglehold on this one, especially in the second half, despite it being so close. It was one of those games where you felt comfortable in that second half with how the Chiefs were playing defense. And obviously, what was it? The fumble recovery touchdown completely flipped the script. And kind of from there, it was difficult for Miami to find any footing. But that just goes to show that Kansas City can win in a lot of different ways, because their defense was, pretty dominant there in the fourth quarter, especially. But Kansas City, 21 points in the first half, and they didn't score in the second half, but they were so dominant defensively that they were able to kind of, keep the Dolphins at bay. And if Kansas City gets up on you, it feels like it's over, even if it's not.
Yeah, I will say this. I'm stealing this from Trey Wingo. He tweeted this out. Trey Wingo, remember him?
I do.
This indeed. I think this is a really valid point that he made, and that's why I wanted to share it with our listeners. He says the Chiefs' offense is broken. They scored only 14 points that game. Remember, the other came off the scoop and score. Yeah. They've scored under 24 points 6 times this season. One of the times they scored over 24 points was putting up 1 million points on the Bears in front of Taylor Swift. So take that with what you will. So really, in 7 of their games, they've been offensively just challenged.
Yeah,
now
that's true. But their defense is so good, it hasn't mattered.
They're still the number 1 seed in the AFC. So, yeah, I mean, if I'm a Chiefs fan this morning, I'm very thankful this game played out the way it is. They are the first team to win overseas this season while having less time in that country. Mike McDaniel got the Dolphins there early in the week. I think they were there Monday. Chiefs didn't get there till Thursday late. They only had one walkthrough on Friday, and then they played that game. So this Chiefs team has been just kind of like towing that line all season long. And I still think the most important thing for this Chiefs team to do is to set a wide receiver rotation. Like, they're throwing out like 6-7 guys, and I just think they need to clean it up. It needs to be Rice.
Can't figure out who to. Yeah,
it needs to be Rice, Valdez-Scantling, Mecole Hardman, and then one other guy. And it's like, that's it. And we're done. Like the Sky Moore, Looney, like all these things are just not working. Tooney, excuse me. They're just not, it's just not working. So just figure out that rotation, build that chemistry, and roll with it. That they need. Now they still have a bye week coming on up. So I think I'm not panicking yet, but the Chiefs just don't feel still like 100%. And maybe you can on the flip side, say that's a good thing because they're winning games. They're not 100%. But eventually it's like, when are they going to figure this out? And should I be concerned, especially when you see what the offense is like, the Bengals coming alive, the Ravens are a juggernaut right now, and Lamar's not even playing great because they're just running the ball down people's throats. So that's got to be a little bit of a concern. For Miami, it's a simple thing with Miami. They got to show us they can beat one good team. If they can beat one good team, then I'll start to believe in them as a chance to really compete for a Super Bowl. But right now, they are stuck in that they will make the playoffs. They might even win a playoff game, but they're not a real threat until they show us they could beat at least one good team.
Yeah, that's interesting because I didn't even put that together and realize that all of their wins have come against teams
Miami,
that are under 500 this year.
Yeah, here's the thing on Miami. This was Barstool Sports that tweeted this out as soon as the game ended. The 2023 Dolphins are 6-0 versus teams with losing records, 0-3 versus teams with winning records. So as simple as that. So,
and then if you look at who they have coming up, the Jets have winning record. The Titans have a winning record. The Cowboys, the Ravens, the Bills. Like that's got 5 games up here.
They have a chance to put some real wins together to show us, hey, they are for real. But
the Titans don't have a winning record. I don't know what I'm talking about.
But as of right now, they are. I mean, they are the Vikings of last year. They're going to make the playoffs, but I don't trust them in the playoffs as of right now.
Yeah, they're a strange team to kind of figure out because they have looked so on point and so good in a lot of their games. And I mean, kudos to them. They played the Chiefs within 7 points. It shows that if this was a playoff matchup, that they would, be able to go toe to toe with them. And they did with the Bills earlier this season as well. Before the Bills actually just blew it wide open. But the point being is that Miami has the tools to get there, and they're going to get healthy again. They're going to get Devon Achane back, which is a huge spark for that running game. But, now it looks like Hill might be a little bit banged up, and Waddle got hurt in the game. So this is a team, and we mentioned this at the beginning of the season. If one domino falls, like they don't have the depth there to overcome injuries. So they're going to have to stay healthy the rest of the year. And that's a big if for any team. But right now that's kind of just, they're 6-3 and they need to start putting it together soon because of the schedule that's coming up. The Vikings go on the road at the Falcons, and what a strange set of circumstances here. The Josh Dobbs game. What an incredible moment for him. He gets traded from Arizona. We'll talk about that. To try and help salvage the Viking season after they lose Kirk Cousins for the year. Josh Dobbs, former 5th-round pick for the Steelers, was a third-string quarterback in Pittsburgh for several years. Always liked him. He was awesome. Just never obviously would break through.
He's like a rocket scientist.
There. He is a rocket scientist, in fact. So smart cat, and gets to Minnesota with a day before the game or 2 days before the game. Goes through a couple walkthroughs, learns some of the plays. But they say, hey, we're going to start Jaron Hall, the rookie, and
he was playing
he's going to be the dude. And he was playing fine, and then he gets hurt. And so Josh Dobbs has to go in with not even knowing his teammates' names, and he comes in and engineers an incredible comeback late in this game, just on point. He's clearly got the leadership quality, and it's not unlike what we've seen from Taylor Heineke providing sparks.
Yeah,
he was obviously on the other sidelines in this game. Josh Dobbs just has a little bit of that leadership and that X factor that can pull out some of these wins. So huge victory for them. And as you mentioned, with the NFC North being in the state it's in, I mean, this is a big win for the Vikings because they're 5-4, and the way that, the Lions are on a bye this week, so they didn't have to worry about, keeping pace with the Lions. They're now kind of right in lockstep there. And they have a legit chance now in a bad division.
I mean, they're the 7th seed in the NFC playoffs. We talked about it a couple weeks ago. The 7th seed in the NFC is up for grabs. Who wants it? Is it going to be Minnesota, Washington, Atlanta, Tampa, maybe the Rams and the Packers. I mean, they're both alive. It seems like the Giants, the Bears, the Panthers, and the Cardinals have all been resigned to their fate at the bottom. So it's going to be this that group of teams battling, and Minnesota's pulling away despite not having Justin Jefferson and now having lost Kirk Cousins. And so I will say this. I still believe Minnesota, the smartest thing they can do is, as soon as Josh Dobbs loses a game for them, go back to Jaren Hall when he's healthy, because that kid's got a little bit of spark. BYU, 5th rounder, mobile kid. I'd like to see him play. I'd like to see him play, because the Vikings, obviously, no matter what happens, if they make the playoffs or not, their goal is to be the quarterback of the future, to develop with your wide receivers. And you may be playing yourself out of a position to draft the quarterback in the top 10, but you have assets. You might be able to trade up, like you know what I mean? Or who knows, maybe a Michael Penix falls to you late in the mid first round, something like that. So you got to do all your scouting on that. But I would say, if I was the Vikings, I'd want to see what Jaren Hall has to offer, because Dobbs is not the guy Dobbs is the guy you might want to start your year with next year if you draft a Michael Penix, you know what I mean, in the first round, but not necessarily go all in. But the Vikings are in the driver's seat, and they should be. They're the best of that teams right now. The Washington, Atlanta, Tampa, Green Bay, Rams. They're the best overall team, best coach. Kevin O'Connell, great job. For Atlanta, on the flip side, listen, Arthur Smith, I like Arthur Smith. And I think Arthur Smith, he's got a tough gig, because Atlanta is very much stuck in that we have talent, but we don't have the quarterback. We have the scheme, but we don't have all the pieces on defense. But, dude, I mean, he is taking a beating from his fan base. Where's the Bijan Robinson carries? Where is Kyle Pitts in this offense? Bijan is not getting touches at all. And if it's because he's not ready, not playing, well, then you got to play him and show that to your fan base, because you want to save your job and not protect your GM. If the GM made the wrong pick and the kid's not good and not ready to play, or whatever it may be, I don't know. But it's just weird in Atlanta right now. And they've already announced Taylor Heineke's the starter going forward for the next week. I think that's probably still the good thing, because you want to win games if you're Arthur Smith, but don't do it at the chance of ruining your own reputation for, like, do you hate Bijan Robinson for some reason?
Yeah, no, I know that's what we've seen from Bijan is that he's extremely talented and has produced on the field. So I don't think it has anything to do with it's got to be something behind the scenes, or maybe he's not, practicing the way that they want him to. You know what I mean? And it seemed like he ended up in the doghouse, and it's weird. Yeah, it is a little bit strange. I think I disagree with the Vikings take, because I think if you have an opportunity to win the division, you still have to try and go do that. And with that being in view, Josh Dobbs clearly gives you the best chance to do that. And so I would start Josh Dobbs, and maybe you just give Jaren Hall a better look, because there's no Kirk Cousins there. Jaren Hall now gets second string reps in practice, and you could still maybe get some looks. It's not the same. I was just saying, as soon as he loses you, that I'd ride this Josh Dobbs wave here, because I think you just do that. But I mean, Jaren Hall was interesting. He was interesting at the start of that game, and he's mobile and he's young. But maybe you're right. Maybe they don't feel like they need to get that look, like they know he's not a quarterback of the future anyways. If they go 1-2 and the Lions win the next 3 or something like that, then maybe you could talk about, like, okay, let's start Jaren Hall the rest of the way. He'll still get 6 games. You could get a good sample size out of that. But I think right now, while the opportunity is there, you got to seize it. Cardinals get shut out on the road after trading Josh Dobbs. Ugly. They're now 1-8 on the season. The Browns had Clayton Tune. Yeah, Deshaun Watson came back after several weeks of dealing with that shoulder injury, and he looked pretty good in this game. But it was, of course, yet again Cleveland's defense that stole the show. Was it 4 turnovers? I believe they forced. They're nasty in this game, and they are opportunistic. They get after it, and at the end of the day, it was that defense that really stole the show. So, 2 interceptions of Clayton Tune. They also picked up a fumble as well. So it's one of those situations where the Browns are kind of like the Steelers in a way that their defense is so dominant and their offense really hasn't put it together and figured it out.
Yeah.
So they're both right in that wheelhouse, right? The Browns are 5-3. They're staying afloat. Steelers are 5-3, staying afloat. And the Bengals are right there at 5-3 as well. But yeah, I mean, big win for Cleveland to get a shutout win, to get maybe a little bit more confidence going for Deshaun, because that's something that he needed. That they really needed him to have like a convincing performance out there, probably his best in a Browns uniform so far. And so, maybe that puts the wheels in motion for them. And for the Cardinals, it's it's tank season. So that's all you can say about that.
Yeah, exactly right. Great win for Cleveland. Like, disaster was on the horizon if Cleveland lost this game and Deshaun looked bad. So they avoided the disaster, and getting a win is huge, because you can justify, hey, we blew out a team we're supposed to blow out at home. Like, all those, like, they checked the boxes in the win. So that's great. I will say Cleveland's defense is just disgusting. Myles Garrett is so good. He's so much fun to watch. I mean, he is just an absolute different human being. He is built different. When they picked him number 1 overall versus like picking Baker Mayfield number 1 overall, they got it right with Myles Garrett. You pick the dude that doesn't look like any other dude, right? Like, that's what a number 1 overall pick is supposed to be. And like, Baker's the exact opposite of like that. For the Cardinals, I will say they're in an interesting spot. They have the number 1 overall pick right now. But at this point in time, as an organization, Kyler Murray's going to be ready to go within the next week or two. I think Kyler's going to come back, and I think they just have to play him. Like, you have to, as an organization, play him when he's healthy and he's ready. So it'll be very much Kyler and Justin Fields trying to win as many games as they can to save their jobs in their teams. Meanwhile, this kind of weird battle for the number 1 overall pick. Now the Giants are going to be in tank mode. So this tank race is going to get very interesting. The Panthers are trash, but the Bears have that pick anyway. So Kyler, the best thing he can do is the same thing that the Justin Fields. They're in the same boat, Kyler and Justin Fields. You've got to put up good games, good numbers, and win games for your team to try and A, keep your job in your city, or B, make yourself the desired QB to trade for the Atlantas, for the Vikings, for the teams that will win enough games but need a quarterback of the future. Think about Kyler Murray in Atlanta. That's really interesting. Think about Justin Fields in Minnesota. That's really interesting if it falls that way. I'm not saying it should or it would, but those are the storylines. Think about Justin Fields in Seattle. Like, those are the storylines you want to start creating if you're Justin Fields and you're Kyler Murray. Like, hey, we're going to win a lot of games. We want to be a starting quarterback and have a chance in this league. You're going to have to start doing that down the stretch here, and maybe even staying with your team's the best thing you can do.
Yeah. And who's to say that the Cardinals won't just take Marvin Harrison Jr. first overall and stick with Kyler and get themselves
if Kyler plays well,
consensus number 1 receiver.
It's the same thing the Bears fans are saying. If the Bears if Fields comes back and wins games, and yet the Panthers end up with the number 1 pick, maybe you just take Marvin Harrison Jr. with the number 1 overall pick, and you trade the other pick, and you build around Fields.
Exactly. The Packers get a much-needed win, snapping their 3-game streak. 20-3 over the Rams. The Rams were without Matthew Stafford. Of course, it was Brett Rippon, the nephew of Mark Rippon, who had that great Super Bowl run with Washington back in the 90s. But Jordan Love had 1 touchdown. He didn't make any, costly mistakes. They were able to get Aaron Jones going on the ground a little bit in this game. Christian Watson, there were a couple missed opportunities there in the receiving core from Jordan. Just the connection still not working great. But, this was something that the Packers probably also wanted to get for Jordan Love as well. Just one of those at-home convincing wins that kind of gets that confidence back up. But they're 3-5. They're not making a run at this division. So really it's just about building that confidence of Jordan Love and seeing what they can get moving forward with him. And meanwhile, the Rams are now 3-6, Mark. they're in a kind of troubling spot as well because they just couldn't afford Matt Stafford getting hurt. And this time it was it was a thumb injury now, right? So it's just more problems
brutal
popping
for the
up,
Rams,
unfortunately. Yeah.
Because the Rams very much, if you watch this game, I mean, they were the better team for stretches, but offensively, they could not be consistent. So I truly believe this was a moment, if, just that injury happened, the worst time for the Rams and Stafford to get a very winnable game for them. The Packers are not good. I mean, they're just not. Offensively, it's ugly to watch. It's painful. I will give them credit. It felt like they said, you know what? We're going to hand the ball off a ton, and we're going to try to just chunk this out against a team that we should beat. And then Jordan Love made, like he does, plays in the second half. He's just terrible in the first half, but he made some plays late in the game. He settled in. Packers fans got to be realistic, and they're in a troubling spot. The Packers feel a little bit like New England, where it's like you say to yourself, our quarterback, it feels like it's not necessarily all their fault, but it also feels like the writing's on the wall. We've seen what Super Bowl level quarterbacking is for so long, and what we're seeing now is just not it. It's just not it. And Jordan Love feels to me a lot more along the lines of like, he feels less than Kenny Pickett. You know what I mean? And he even feels less than Bryce Young and some of these guys who, and like Tua, where it's like, oh no, if they have the system, he doesn't feel like he has any pop at all. Like just zero pop at all.
Yeah. Now I've kind of likened him to EJ Manuel from seems like a long time ago. Just like a very, below average starting quarterback with some, like big arm capabilities and a little bit of mobility there. But at the end of the day, like we've said before, I mean, this is year one as a starter, but this is year 4 in the NFL. So, or year 3 in the NFL.
No, year 4. He's Joe Burrow.
It is year 4. So, I mean, there's been a lot of time to get the mental aspect of the game intact. And that's, a lot of times the biggest thing to overcome.
But also just the pop. Like there's no wow. There's no boom. Wow. I mean, CJ Stroud, 5 touchdowns that we'll talk about. I mean, like that's boom. Wow. Holy smokes.
Yeah. And at least for Kenny Pickett, you can say he's pulled off some incredible fourth quarter comeback.
Mr. Fourth quarter comeback. And they're winning games. Jordan Love has a lot of work to do down the stretch to bolster the confidence for them to say, you know what, we're going to pick up the 5th-year option. We're going to roll with it, and we'll see a full off season of confidence building and more building around him. But otherwise, the Packers might be one of those sneaky teams in that veteran quarterback market where they might say, Kyler Murray, you know what I mean? Get him a dynamic quarterback if they want to go down that route or something like that.
Another team that is in need of a lot of work and a dynamic quarterback are the New England Patriots, who got outplayed. And I think the Commanders are the better team, to be quite honest with you. They won 20-17.
Better quarterback.
Washington did. They got a better quarterback. They're 4-5 on the season. New England falls to 2-7. This is kind of an unprecedented thing we're seeing with Bill Belichick here. It's brought up a lot of questions yet again of his, tenure with Cleveland and his lack of success without Tom Brady. And it's, whether or not there's an actual correlation to be drawn there, it is a fact. And it's what we're seeing so far with this tenure with Mac Jones and company. And they got outplayed. The Commanders are that tough, gritty team that the Patriots want to be, and we thought maybe would be going into this year. But I think, Mark, because both of us kind of said they were probably going to be the best of the 4th place teams in their division. Unfortunately, that's clearly not the case.
It's not the case. Season. Let's call a spade. 2 things. There was the Washington Commanders were the trade deadline story. They went into, we're tanking. We got rid of Sweat. We got rid of Chase Young. But what they didn't do is get rid of offensive players. They clearly feel like Sam Howell is the guy and worth building around. And I absolutely agree with them at this point in time. I'm shocked. I mean, I predicted them to be a bad team this year, and they've been anything but like like bad. They have been hovering above the pathetic. They're not the Giants. They're not the Bears. They're not the Panthers. And a win like this, separating them from New England even, you feel good if you're a Commanders fan in the sense that you have some really nice pieces. It's just unsure of what the organization should do. At this moment in time, to me, it feels like they should move on from Ron Rivera. They should advance Bieniemy to the head coach. And now they should use some draft capital to bolster that offense and go all in on Sam Howell, offensive skill guys, and build the defense on the fly. As far as the future, it looks like for Washington. That's what I feel like. And this win, to me, aids in that. Like, Bieniemy is clearly added and is building confidence with Howell, and Howell is playing at a very nice level, and you see some pop with Sam Howell. For the New England Patriots, they're the Green Bay Packers right now. They're just stuck. It feels like they don't know which way is up. They don't know which way to go. They don't have a lot of skill around their guys. They don't have a lot of A players that you're like, boom, that's a game-changing player on either side of the ball. And their quarterback is very much meh. And when you're stuck in meh with quarterback land without a great system and without great talent around them, you're gonna be very much a 2-win team through 8 weeks. That's what it feels like right now for them. And they're looking up at a great quarterback in Josh Allen, a quarterback in a great system in Tua, and a team in the Jets that have a true identity and some real A players. So they're very much dead last, fourth place, struggling, and I don't know where to go if you're New England.
Yeah, if Washington keeps this going and has success the rest of the year and gets to, I predicted them to go 7-10. I think they might go 8-9 or even push potentially for a 9-8. If they have a lot of success, you see growth and improvement from Sam Howell, you'd be hard pressed to say that maybe they shouldn't run it back with Ron Rivera, but they should promote Eric Bieniemy and not lose him. I think there's a possibility where, because Eric Bieniemy is going to get calls again this offseason. So if you feel that he developed a good relationship with Sam Howell and you felt confident in this offense, that's something you don't want to lose. And, if it were me, I would say, Ron, thanks for your service. We're promoting Eric. He's going to be the new head coach, and we'll move on from there. It's just like Ron Rivera. He's not a guy that, is going to get at this point in his career a team to a Super Bowl. It doesn't feel like,
Yeah,
so,
agreed.
The Bears go on the road at the Saints, and this was kind of a brutal game because I thought Tyson,
they had a chance.
Looked really good early in this game, especially in the first half. And they had an opportunity. Cole Kmet had a big game in this one. They were tied there going into the fourth quarter, and unfortunately, the Bears let the Saints get the game-winning touchdown, and the rest is history. 24-17 win as the Bears fall to 2-7. Saints 5-4, still on top of the NFC South there. So an interesting situation for both teams, because they're two teams that we don't think are very good, but one of those not very good teams is still leading their division because of how poor it is, and the other is staring down a race for that number 1 overall pick with Justin Fields possibly returning soon. But very interesting dichotomy between those two teams, but a win that the Bears should have had. And again, I feel like this is more of an indictment on Eberflus when they're not able to pull out these games that are very close, need the defense to step up and get that stop, and they don't end up doing it, and that's on Eberflus.
I'll start with New Orleans and just say New Orleans is perfectly like average. I mean, they are the epitome of like middle of the pack NFL team. And I say that in a good and a bad way. Jordan stepped up in the very end to make the big plays to help seal that victory. They have guys on defense, and then offensively, when Derek Carr has protection like he did against the Bears and he didn't get pressured enough, he'll dink, he'll dime, he'll be accurate, and he will lead you to a victory at home. But the Bears had 5 turnovers to none for the Saints, and they were within 1 score. So the Saints aren't exactly world beaters, but they should still win that division. They feel like they find a way to win that division. And the Saints are to me, they are another really incredible defensive playmaker away, and to me, just like a tweak or two on the offensive line away from being a team that with their car can be like, oh, okay, now they could be more of a contender in the NFC.
They could win a playoff game.
Like, I don't think the Saints should blow it up by any means, depending on how the rest of the season goes. But they feel like they're going to win this division. But if they make a couple tweaks in the offseason, they could actually be a real, like, moving in the right direction type of team. On the flip side for the Bears, again, I don't want to waste too much time. I think I'll say this. Let's start with Montez Sweat, right? Yep. I think now that they got the deal done, they're paying Sweat just below the top 5 guys. And I think Sweat is and belongs in that category of just below the top 5 guys. He's a very, very good player. I think he is a B-plus player. He is a guy. What do I always say about the Bears? You need more A and B players. Like that's how you win in the NFL. Like, you need A and B players. I don't love trading a second-round pick, but the Bears see the writing on the wall. Like, you have 2 top 10 picks, you had a second rounder, and then you have some thirds and fourths. If you can say to what Ryan Poles did is he looked in the mirror and said, I can add a guaranteed B-plus player in his prime, and I have then the rights to lock him up to a deal, and this is what you got to pay edge rushers, and they didn't significantly overpay. It's not like you paid him more than Joey Bosa. No, you're paying him just below those guys. You trade a second rounder for the right to get him. And then what's great is it frees up the transition tag for the Jalen Johnsons and the other players to lock up your good players you have. So that is great. And it also allows the Bears to say on draft day, hey, we can take a wide receiver and an offensive lineman with our top 10 picks because we got Montez Sweat, right? And so I really, really, really like that. I like that. I don't think the Bears are done dealing. The Bears still have the most cap space. So I think the Bears will still be very aggressive in the free agency market. I also think the Bears will have a little bit more now. I think this puts Eberflus's seat even hotter because now it's like, hey, listen, we got you someone to play with. You're the defensive play caller. You're the head coach. You're the defense guy. We got you someone to play with. And did you or did you not get the production out of him in the second half of the season? So I like all those things. Secondly, as far as the game goes, Tyson Badgett.
Well, real quick, just to compare with the Montez Sweat thing, are you more upset that Chase Young went for
no.
even lesser
I didn't want
price?
Chase Young. I didn't want Chase Young.
Okay.
I just didn't. Like, Chase Young is a little more of a diva. Chase Young is injury prone. Chase Young is the higher ceiling, but way lower floor. I don't want to pay those guys. I want to pay guys like Montez Sweat, who will be a part of my team for 4 years. And he will be because he's capable of being a part of your team for 4 years. Chase Young isn't. He's just not. So no, I was never on Chase Young. If you could have got Chase Young for a 4th rounder or something, sure, right? And if the Bears were in the spot where they were 4-4, and you're looking for, we just want to get a pop and try to win more games, then sure. But Montez Sweat is a building block player for your organization, and you traded a second rounder for the rights to sign him, and now he's not going anywhere. He is your part of your organization for 4 years, and I love that. As far as the actual game goes, this is the biggest thing for me, and I've been saying it. I'll keep saying it on Twitter. I love that Tyson Badgett is your backup quarterback. Like, you found really a backup quarterback. Like, that's great. Like, that is a great, great thing because he can be your backup if you draft, a quarterback in the top picks. And he's clearly really capable of being Justin Fields' backup, winning you 1 game, losing you 2, and Justin Fields comes back and now plays. What you want from your backup quarterback in the NFL is he's similar enough to your starter, Badgett is, and he's similar enough to, and he's good enough to win you 1 of the 2 or 3 games that your quarterback's going to miss. If your starting quarterback misses 4 or more games, well, then your season's pretty much lost anyways, right? Like, that's life in the NFL. So Badgett is a solid, perfect backup quarterback that you don't have to pay literally anything for, and I love that you found him. And I think you pair him with Justin Fields as the backup to Justin Fields as long as he's there, or the backup to whoever else you draft as long as that kid's there. So I'm happy about that, but it is time to play Justin Fields as soon as he's healthy to play. He's got to play. It's Justin Fields' team. And so that's where I stand on all of that. I'm still with you. I'm out on Eberflus. I've been out on Eberflus since about week 3. I'm ready for a new coaching staff. I would love personally a Ben Johnson or a Jim Harbaugh with Justin Fields. That's where I still stand. And using the top picks to draft top players or to trade to get more picks and not draft a quarterback. That's where I'm at. But that's life as a Bears fan. It's just on Twitter, it's a nightmare right now.
Yeah. It is pretty brutal and unfortunate all the same, but Justin Fields should be back sooner rather than later, and we can get that ball rolling once again. The Seahawks came into this game against Baltimore 5-2.
Wow.
They're 5-3 now after a brutal loss. They looked really bad, and Baltimore looked really good in this game. 37-3 was the final there for Lamar Jackson and company. While he didn't get a touchdown through the air or anything like that, he looked very competent and capable. The run game was really good. They started to get other people involved, like OBJ. Mark Andrews had a big game, so they're starting to put things together as a unit and finding out that they can win in a multitude of ways, which is something that you need to have in the NFL if you want to be able to make it all the way to the Super Bowl. They are now being talked about as the top contender. They're 7-2. They're in the 2 seed. They're right there behind Kansas City, so an opportunity is there for Baltimore to keep getting better, and they're a game and a half in the lead for the AFC North, so they need to keep winning to maintain this confidence and to stay afloat there in the division. But I certainly think that they're the second best team in the AFC right now, and there's a lot to be said for that. They're finding ways, and Keaton Mitchell, their rookie running back, showed a lot of sparks, so maybe he's the guy now moving forward after J.K. Dobbins got hurt yet again going into the season. But yeah, for Seattle, I think it's time to start worrying. We haven't seen at all this season the Geno Smith that we saw last year, but we're like, okay, that's all right. They have Kenneth Walker. They still have, guy playmakers, and Geno's not going to kill you. But to be able to only put up 3 points, yes, Baltimore's got a really good defense, but the entire offense looked completely out of sync. No run game whatsoever for Seattle in this one. And I am starting to get concerned. The last couple of weeks I missed, obviously, of football. I didn't get to see all of the football, but it does appear that the Seahawks are starting to trend in a negative direction, even among some wins.
Yeah, I wouldn't panic too much on Seattle because, again, our expectations of Seattle this year were borderline playoffs, and I think right now they're still very much alive for that 6-7 seed.
Yeah, they are.
And what I will say about Seattle is I agree with you. The Geno, we're just at the point with Geno now where it's like, all right, this team has talent. Walker, those 3 receivers, that defense is improving. And now it's just like, okay, it's time for Seattle. It was fun
while it lasted. Yeah.
It's time for Seattle to really get serious about what are we doing at quarterback, whether that is Kirk Cousins next year, whether that's, getting aggressive for a rookie, a guy who's, maybe his team's moving on from like a Kyler or a Justin Fields, whatever that might be, or maybe it's a rookie, because you now have a lot of pieces, and now you got to find someone who's a little bit more consistently dynamic at quarterback. For the Baltimore Ravens, I mean, what else is there to say? They are a juggernaut right now. They are playing the best football right now in the NFL, and Lamar is not even having to play it at an MVP level. That defense is nasty. It's just vicious. And that run game is coming alive. That offensive line is very, very good. Mark Andrews is very, very good. And I will just say this. If the Baltimore Ravens are not playing in the AFC North, they're going to be hard to beat. The AFC North is eating itself alive, and all these teams can beat each other. But when
if you think about it too, we've talked about how dominant these defenses are. The 3 best defenses in the league are in the AFC North.
And Cincinnati's defense is also a good defense.
They're good. They're good.
Comparatively, they're not.
Yeah.
So I'll say this. I mean, yeah, we'll get to the Super Bowl plane here towards it coming on up here, but the Ravens are very, very legit.
The Bucks at the Texans, and this was the CJ Stroud heroics in this game. I mean, he's going to be the dude. We've already seen enough. He's one of those instances where
It's like Justin Herbert. Like we just seen it.
Just saw enough performances with Splash, and week after week he's been bucking the trend of the quarterbacks who throw 35 plus times a game as a rookie are not going to have success. Well, he's the opposite. He's a guy that can throw 40 times a game and still somehow get it done. He had 470 yards passing, a rookie record in the NFL in this game, 5 touchdowns as well. Just an incredible display. After the Buccaneers, back and forth in the fourth quarter, it looked like Baker Mayfield was going to get them the game winner.
Yeah.
And then CJ Stroud comes back and wins the game for them in epic fashion. So yeah, the Bucs aren't a very good team, but neither are the Texans. And CJ Stroud has been the biggest reason to all 4 of their victories this year. They're probably not going to end the year with a winning record, though. But at this rate, maybe 8-9, maybe a floor of 7-10. But either way, he's the reason for every single one of those wins. And that, as a young coach, that as a rebuilding franchise, has to give you all of the hope in the world and the positive vibes there in Houston that they've got the right dude and they're moving in the right direction.
I tweeted it out, and so I want to address it right away. The difference between Bryce Young and CJ Stroud right now, it's not, you can say, oh, the talent around them. Yes, Bryce Young has nothing to work with right now. And we've said it over and over and over again. Bryce Young is Tua. You need to build a system around him, and you need to get him players that fit in that system. And he will succeed. I think he can play at this level and play and put up good numbers and be a very, very solid starting quarterback if you develop it that way. CJ Stroud, we both said it. He was our number 1 guy on the board because the size, the arm strength, and we're seeing it right now. He is making players better around him. Even Herbert, when he started and showed up in the league, he had Keenan Allen. He had Williams. He had Austin Eckler. Stroud has no one. I mean, like no-name guys, and he's turning them into, and a defensive head coach. I think there's 2 things that the Texans have done well. DeMeco Ryans was absolutely the right head coach. He's reminding you a lot of Mike Vrabel. Culture, system, accountability, and he immediately brought that as a first-time head coach. Him and Vrabel, boom, in the same division. And what you're seeing with him is it's just talent. I mean, it's just big, strong, laser arms, reads the field. And that offensive line is pretty darn good. They're giving him time. CJ Stroud is that guy, and Panthers fans have to be sick to your stomach. And the count is that it was the coach and the GM really in Carolina really wanted CJ Stroud. And it was the owner, Tepper, who's like, give me Bryce Young. When you draft a quarterback number 1 overall, size, arm strength, just that dude, it matters. And I really do think we're going to see a little bit of a hold on this kind of just like smaller, undersized guys. And I think it will help Drake May's stock. I think CJ Stroud is helping Drake May's stock and hurting Caleb Williams' stock.
Yeah. I do want to point this out because I saw this right before we logged on for the show today, because I saw all of those reports as well about the disconnect between David Tepper, the owner, and Frank Reich and Scott Fitterer. But Steve Reed of the AP, who I trust, I've worked with him in the past, and he's a good dude. He's been covering the Panthers a long time. He is saying that is inaccurate. He's saying that the fact is that all 3 were on the same page and all 3 wanted Young going into it. So we will never know probably exactly what the truth is. But I trust Steve Reed. And so
we'll see,
maybe that's the case, but regardless, then the question is why at the end of the day, are we getting caught up in all of these things when it did appear to us laymen that CJ Stroud was the best one? And we even said Will Levis was our number 2. And so
we both said Levis was 2.
It's looking like it might be shaping up. And it's very hard to get quarterbacks right. And we have so many predictions that go wrong. But this was one of those unique opportunities where we may have gotten the exact 1, 2, 3 order correct for this quarterback class. And so I think we should pat ourselves on the back
A little bit
for that
it's
one.
early.
Yeah.
It's early, but it feels good. And I'm happy for Texans fans. Stroud and D'Amico Ryans is a heck of a combo. I would be very, very happy if that was my quarterback coach combo of Chicago Bears going forward. Unfortunately, it is not.
Yeah. We can breeze past the next two here. The Colts 27, Panthers 13. Both teams not doing well. But obviously the Colts are just more talented than the Panthers right now. Carolina's 1-7, so hooray Bears. And the Colts are 4-5. So they're putting together some wins here as well. They're doing a little bit better than even I thought they would be, especially with Gardner Minshew at the helm. But Jonathan Taylor getting him back. They're getting Michael Pittman more involved. So they have the playmakers, the Colts do. They always had the roster.
Yeah, Colts are feisty.
More so putting it together. So, yeah, it's unfortunate that they can't be seeing all of this with Anthony Richardson. They're going to have to wait till next year for that. Anything you want to talk to about this particular game before we move on?
No, I will just say this. My one concern with Carolina is that, I wanted them to be more aggressive at the trade deadline. Like I said it, you need to start bringing in people that are going to grow with this young quarterback, and they haven't done that. And I think they're going to have a very big, important offseason. And at this point in time, you are just clutching at your pearls and crossing your fingers that this kid makes it through the rest of the season healthy, because you do not want him to tear or do something to requires a surgery to where he's going to miss offseason development, because he and the coaching staff and this organization needs it. So please, 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 please continue to protect that investment if you're the Carolina Panthers.
Absolutely. No, you got to do that. You're all in. You're tied, and so you do have to do your best to protect that asset. The Giants fall to the Raiders, who were obviously very emotional coming off of the firing of Josh McDaniels. Interim head coach Antonio Pierce, the former New York Giant himself, stepped up to the plate, seemed to rally the troops, and they had the rookie Aiden O'Connell starting in place of Jimmy Garoppolo, who was benched after the firing of Josh McDaniels. A whirlwind going on in Vegas. So that's probably what we want to focus on here in the game, because obviously the Giants just are not a good football team. Daniel Jones got hurt again, so they're pretty much done. The Raiders also not a good football team, but an emotional victory for them, 30-6 in convincing fashion. And it appears that at least they'll have an opportunity to see what Antonio Pierce has to offer as a head coach before making their decision on who's going to lead the helm next season, because this has just been a revolving door over the last 15 years. And I believe there was a stat, I don't know the exact number, so I'm just going to throw this out as a paraphrasing, but I believe they were saying that the last 15 head coaches for the Raiders have not lasted more than 2 years. That's pretty brutal. Dating back to,
it's one of the worst jobs
90s.
in sports. It's one of the worst jobs to have in sports. I will say, though, I think they did the right thing in firing him.
Yeah, they had to do it. Yeah.
Which is just awful, because, again, it's just bad signing. And the Raiders are in a flux. I fully expect the Raiders to this oomph of the Antonio Pierce interim thing to fizzle quickly, to come back down to earth. And a lot of it is the Giants are officially on number one pick watch. They are bad. They traded Leonard Williams. They have lost Daniel Jones. They don't have Tyrod Taylor for the next 3 games. It's bad. It's bad. And it'll be really fascinating to see what happens at the end of the year if the Giants end up with the number 1 overall pick, because you have just committed a ton of money to Daniel Jones, but he's not going to be ready till at least mid-season next year. And he has been absolutely horrendous. How can they pass up if they get the number 1 pick on not taking a Drake May, a Caleb Williams? And they are on the Giants should be on number 1 pick watch. And their fans, if I was a Giants fan, I would be rooting for the tank. Imagine Brian Daboll with one of those young quarterbacks. You could justify it in a sense because you're not paying them much money.
Exactly.
And so you can maybe figure that out.
So you're paying a lot of money at your quarterback position. Just think of it that way. Our quarterback position, we're paying a lot of money to. It just happens to be a rookie that we're, not paying the bulk of that portion to. And hey, maybe they'll get, if they do make that decision, Mark, other teams see that, and other teams who are desperate might say, hey, what can we work out a deal for Daniel Jones? Maybe the Giants eat half the contract and give up Daniel Jones
We'll see.
and save a little bit of money there.
I just say the Giants are officially they're bad. Like they're officially
bad.
like with the Bears
Yeah.
and the Panthers. Like it is now officially number one pick watch for them.
The last time a Raiders head coach, Mark, lasted over 3 seasons was Art Shell, who went from 89 to 94. So 1994 was the last time they had a head coach that lasted more than 3 seasons. That's hard to do.
It's one of the worst.
That's really hard to
sports.
do, especially when they had,
the
John Gruden in the early years when they were good. He didn't even last 3 years with them that first go around. So that's
and you know what,
brutal.
Antonio Pierce and those guys, like they're gonna get the job because they just can't. He cannot afford to pay anyone. Like he just can't do it.
Yeah. No, absolutely. All right. The Cowboys at the Eagles. This was another highly anticipated game. One we expected the Eagles to win, I think, both of us. But it was a little bit closer. I'll give the Cowboys credit for that. They did battle hard. But at the end of the day, it ended up being the Eagles that get the victory. They proved to 8-1. And just like the Chiefs we were talking about, right? They're not putting up the splash numbers that we've seen of them in the past. But similarly to Kansas City, they keep winning despite this. And they are now 8-1, and they're in the top of their conference. So Kansas City and Philadelphia, just like last year with the Super Bowl matchup and everything, they're having similar trajectories here in the 2023 NFL season. I think the Eagles are seeing a little bit more offense from them as of late than Kansas City, but they're two very similar teams on that track. And the Cowboys, I mean, it's something that we've said all along. We're just not buying into it. And I will say, you got to throw this in Mike McCarthy's face because once again, it's like, hey, man, you were talking a big game about how Kellen Moore was all about throwing it all over the place and you're getting yourselves into these turnovers and how you wanted to get back to running the football and being more efficient. Well, you're not more efficient. And red zone scoring, last year they were in the top 3. This year they're 31st. So we want to talk about efficiency metrics. Mike McCarthy needs to take some ownership and accountability for how he handled that Kellen Moore departure and the fact that this is his offense to run now.
Yeah, the Cowboys. Listen, I mean, they're just a very okay team. They're an okay team. They have a big play receiver. Dak, when he gets time and protection, can really move the ball on you.
They can't run the ball either.
No, but they have an elite defender in Micah Parsons, probably, on any given Sunday, the best player on defense in the NFL. There's a handful of guys. He's in that handful. And then, overall, I will say this about Philly. One of the things we said with Philly last year was they were blowing teams out, remember? And it was like, they're not really playing close games. Then Jalen Hurts got hurt, and then they lost some games, and he came back, and it was like, yeah. This year, they are winning wild games. They lost a physical game. They're winning blowouts. They're winning tight games. So I love that Philly, it feels like it's having a more traditional year for a Super Bowl team. Does that make sense? Where they are winning games they're supposed to win. They lost a game they're supposed to win. They're winning tight. They're winning ugly. They're winning blowouts. I think this team is finding a lot of confidence. I love Philly right now. Love Philly. And A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, they are nasty. They're nasty with the weapons, and Jalen Hurts is playing some really good football.
Jalen Hurts is playing inspired football, and that tush push continues to be so impressive.
I love the evolution
so
of
many
the tush
times
push.
a game.
I love it too, with the fakes, with the play action. Love it.
Yep. It's good stuff for sure. All right, the final one, Sunday Night Football. The Bengals pull out a 24-18 victory over the Bills. Despite that close score, I felt like the Bengals were in control most of this game, and I'm still feeling good about my prediction with the Bills just kind of being at the ceiling that we've seen them and not ever getting beyond that, over the hump, so to speak. And they're finding themselves in the tough position here at 5-4. If they lose another game or two, that's going to be really tough sledding for them, considering the Jets are finding ways to win games somehow. The Miami Dolphins aren't going anywhere. And so your division's kind of being up for grabs. If the AFC North continues to win the way they are, the wild card's going to be a tough thing to compete for. Buffalo should be, I'm pretty concerned for Buffalo right now, to be honest. They're just not, they're way too reliant on Josh Allen. They have nothing else going for them. They can't run the football effectively. And unless the script works well for them, I don't trust them really from behind by
No.
more than a touchdown behind. I feel like it's over for Buffalo. If they're behind 10, yikes. Yeah,
Which is crazy
just
because
difficult.
Gabe Davis and Diggs are both big play receivers.
Yeah.
But
They
you're
are.
right in the sense that Buffalo feels like they just call plays. They don't have a system, a formula, an identity. It's just calling plays. And now that their defense is banged up so badly, now I do like that they got Rasul Douglas. I like that they were aggressive. They got a corner. They'll work him in. Problem is Buffalo. I think it was who was it? Someone on ESPN. Buffalo wants to play, and this is true. They want to play zone coverage, but I'm sorry, when you have to play man and they're beat up, like Joe Burrow picks apart zone coverage. Patrick Mahomes picks apart zone coverage, and they don't have they're not healthy enough to play man to man against some of those great teams. So they're just at a loss, even though they have a really solid defense when healthy. They're at a loss in some of those moments. They need to have an offensive identity. They really do. And I think there's a lot of good that can come of this for Buffalo in the long term, that they might have to move on from their head coach. And if you are a Ben Johnson, if you are a Jim Harbaugh, one of the top contending coaching candidates, Buffalo is going to be extremely attractive. Winnable division with Josh Allen and those weapons, extremely, extremely attractive. I will add, I think that's where you could start having those conversations. The seat is definitely warm, if not hot, for Sean McDermott right now. I will add, for the Bengals, to me right now, they have to be looked at as in the big three of the AFC. I know their record might not show it, but again, they are, over the last 4 weeks, they're playing as good a football as anyone.
They're great. Yeah.
And
Joe Burrow's playing the best quarterback. Yeah.
Joe Burrow has been the best quarterback in the NFL the last 3 weeks, and that's dangerous because the Bengals are the team that we can all confidently say anywhere, anytime, anyone, they'll put up a fight and they will show up. And that's Joey Cool, that's Joey B, and they're fun to watch right now. They are really, really fun to watch. Things are clicking for them. I just don't know if they have the elite defense that the Chiefs and the Ravens do right now, but it may not matter because right now they have the guy playing best quarterback in the league.
I will pose this question to you before we get to the Super Bowl plane. The Buffalo Bills currently are the 9 seed. They're behind the New York Jets, who are the 8 seed. If you were a betting man right now, like, does Buffalo get there by the end of the season? Keeping in mind that the rest of their they do have some easy games here, but then
I do think they get there because
Eagles, Chiefs.
I do think they get there because I think even though they have tougher games, I still think you're going to see some leveling out of the competition around them. I don't worry as much about the Browns. I don't worry as much about the Steelers. I think there's some coming back to earth for the teams ahead of them, the Jets, versus Josh Allen is still, I'm going to rely on Josh Allen to get me there. The problem will be if they make it as a wild card team, the future of their ceiling is not high right now for Buffalo. It's just not. Josh Allen is their ceiling, and Josh Allen is a guy that needs a system. He's a guy that needs to design. Watch the scripted plays for the first drive. They were amazing. The Bills came out, touchdown. We thought this was going to be 34-33 shootout, but then it fell apart for them because they don't have a system beyond that, and that is a huge problem for the coaching staff of the Buffalo Bills.
It is. And, it's tough to have that sobering thought about Sean McDermott because he's been so good. But at the same time,
it feels like
if you're not getting over it. Yeah, you have to be able to move on and call a spade when it gets to that point. All right, drum roll for the Super Bowl plane. Introducing the newest edition here of Football Lounge Airways as we are Well, we've already taken off. I don't know where we're at. You can kind of give us the coordinates here.
Yeah, we're leaving Philadelphia for a quick stop over in Pittsburgh. Okay, just a quick transfer. So first class, again, if you're new to the football play, to the Super Bowl plane to the football lounge, first class is these are the only teams I believe that can actually win the Super Bowl today. Those are it. Ravens, Chiefs, and Eagles. That's it. I mean, it's as simple as that. As of today, from what we've seen from resumes, quarterback play, coaching, if you're going to bet for a team to win a Super Bowl, those are the only three teams I'd put money on.
Whoa,
business class. A business class. These are teams that absolutely can make a championship game. They can maybe make a Super Bowl even, but could they win a Super Bowl? As of right now, no. There's enough of a flaw they can't win a Super Bowl. For the Bengals, it's the defense. For the Jaguars, it's the youth, and it's just the inconsistency of the offensive line. And for the Lions, it is I just don't know if they can overcome all of that bad juju in 1 year. Could they make a Super Bowl? It's possible because the NFC is so weak beyond the Eagles. But could they win a Super Bowl against any of those teams of first class? No, it's just no.
That's interesting that the Lions are there. I might take some objection with that, but we'll get to your economy class list and then we can discuss.
Well, again, the business classes, they got to make it to an NFC championship. They got to make it to a championship game or further. And right now I have more confidence in the Lions than any other team in the NFC beyond, except for the Eagles. And then, of course, economy is these are teams that will make the playoffs, in my opinion, and they could even win a game or two, but their absolute ceiling is the championship game, and even most likely I don't see them necessarily in a championship game. Niners, they're on a 3-game skid, and they add Young, so they have a lot of upside going into their next football game. Bills and Dolphins are tail spinning. But I will say I trust them more than teams like in the AFC, like a Steelers, you know what I mean? Like a Chargers, like a Jets. They have a leg up on those teams because of quarterback for the Bills and because of system and coaching for the Dolphins.
Yeah, overall, I don't have an objection to the teams listed on this plane.
No other teams in the NFC should be on the plane. Correct. So if you want to gripe about who should be ahead of who, I trust right now the Lions over the Niners just barely, mainly because of Jared Goff and the consistency of the offensive line for the Lions.
Gotcha. Yeah, see, that's the only one I would probably flip those to. Me personally, I still believe in the 49ers, but they have had a rough go. Both of those teams were on the bye, so if we want to discuss the bye teams real quick, we can do so. There were 4 teams on a bye this past week, and those being the Detroit Lions, the San Francisco 49ers, the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the Denver Broncos. So, any thoughts on these teams that I thought the bye week came at a good and a bad time for the 49ers. They really needed to get back on. So a win this week would be really nice they got to stew on this for a little bit. They watched Seattle lose, which I guess helped them out a bit, but gave them an opportunity to move ahead of them. Detroit watches the Vikings make a comeback win, and that's kind of sticks in your craw. So, but both these teams, the Lions and the 49ers, have an opportunity to not only get healthy, but come back and get wins and still stake their claim atop their divisions, especially because of, the lack of quality competition in those divisions. So I think those are big takeaways for those two teams. The Jaguars, they a bye week to not just get healthy, but really another week to maybe try and figure out how we're going to spark this offense, because we haven't, overall, I've been a little disappointed in what we've seen from Trevor Lawrence this year.
Agreed.
But again, they're winning games. So it's you can't be that disappointed. And he's very talented still. But Calvin really, these two got to start, getting that Burrow Chase kind of connection.
Agreed.
And then the Broncos they're the Broncos. I think all they just need to find some sort of some sort of chemistry somewhere.
I will say for each team, quickly, the Broncos, I think it came at the right time for them. They got to win. It's like now fly back under the radar. No one's trashing on you anytime soon. Can you focus in and come out with a tighter game plan, feel more comfortable and kind of push in the second half of the season? For the Jaguars, absolutely. It's a time for that offense to regroup and to say, hey, what do we need to do to get on the page to be a little more explosive so we can score with the Baltimores, with the Cincinnatis, with the Chiefs of the world here as we're trying to compete with. For the Lions, I think the bye it came at a really good time. They had some nagging injuries, get really healthy. And also they add wide receiver at the trade deadline, Peoples-Jones, and say to yourself, what do we need to do here now with some really winnable games to just absolutely dominate this division down the stretch, right? Take care of our division down the stretch, and I think they absolutely will. For the Niners, I think the bye came at a perfect time. You get to add Chase Young. You get to bring him in with the bye. You're on a skid. Part of the reason you're on a skid is because Debo's not healthy. Trent Williams isn't healthy.
Yeah, get those guys back.
Hey, Brock Purdy, everything's okay. Settle in. Let's take a breath. So I think the bye came at a great time for the Niners. Yes, you're right. You want to get that bad taste out of your mouth. But I think this is a team that'll be motivated from it. I expect big things from the Niners here in the second half. An all-in attitude, a refocused attitude with some tough games for the Niners coming on up. So don't write them off. It's funny. That Super Bowl plane had, 3 big teams that were on a bye. And so it was a weird noon slate of games, a lot of yuck. We're already talking a lot about draft for a lot of teams, but there is a chunk of this team, of this NFL right now. Arizona, Chicago, New York, that absolutely in the NFC, it's all about the draft. Panthers, you know what I mean? Like that's 4 teams.
Yep.
That's a whole division basically of teams in the NFC that's just out of it. And in the AFC, you have a lot of teams that are just in that, what are we battling for? And then teams like the Colts that just, the season's lost anyways. So there's a good chunk of this NFL right now that they're literally just playing it out. And it matters to a lot of guys for their jobs. But as far as Super Bowl playoffs, no.
Yeah. I think that's all fair and well said. So a lot of agreement there.
Good to be back.
This has been fun. We're back. Yeah, back on the airwaves. It's been great to get back in the flow of things. And here we are going to the back half of the NFL season already. It flies by. It absolutely goes so fast. And so I'm looking forward to seeing, how this season progresses and some of the topics that we'll be able to forge on with moving forward. I will say in the next week or so, one of these episodes we'll kind of start to look back on our early season preseason predictions.
Yeah.
And see kind of where we're.
I did have the Giants with a better record than the Cowboys. We can address that now. That was wrong.
Yes. Yeah. That's inaccurate. But
I'm a Cowboys
hater. There's plenty to go around where that's concerned. So, yeah, this has been great. Please, as always, follow us on YouTube, social media at FB Lounge. You can check us out on X and Instagram, Threads, everywhere that you get your news and sports commentary. If you are watching on YouTube, please consider liking and subscribing. It really helps us out with the algorithm. And thanks again to our sponsors for making this a wonderful podcast network here at the For Frequency's Sake Podcast Network. And you can check out all of the other shows at forfantasysakeqc.com. But for Mark, I'm Dan, and we'll see you back here next week.